Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Friday, November 1st, 2024. Congratulations to all the saints. It is your day. And we all had our day yesterday, I guess. Halloween, adult candy day is today, all the leftover candy, and all the usual panic that goes along with, well, pretty well. It was a good compliment to election season, really. Those last-minute adjustments to the model. Right, I have too much candy. I have not enough candy. The weather factored into it. We had a warm day here yesterday, and it'll be warm again today. And it was warm into the evening, and it was hot. It was un-Halloween-ish, at least abnormally warm. It wasn't outrageous. It wasn't desert conditions here, but it was warm, and the kids were hot, walking around in their costumes, and that's kind of uncomfortable. We thought it would be a heavier trick-or-treating night because with warmer temperatures, kids could be out longer. They weren't freezing and they weren't upset having to wear their winter coats over their cool costumes. But instead, they were upset having to take off their masks or unzip their costumes and walk around and tell everybody, of course, what they were instead of just making it obvious by showing up in costume. But it was a warm night. I even had one trick-or-treater ask for water, not instead of candy, but in addition, asking, do you have a bottle of water? Could I get some water? And I didn't have any because, of course, we've been trained now. Well, let's get rid of all of those disposable packages of bottled water and do the reuse thing. And then I realized that, I used to, time was... Back when I was giving out Werther's original candies, I would have bottled water on hand pretty readily, but didn't have any for this young man, and he was in a big hurry. I told him I'd get him a cup of water, but he needed to catch up with his friends. So his parents were with him. A lot more parents out with older kids these days, but there are some munchkins among them, so supervising the really little ones, I guess. And so I called down to the parents and said, I think your son is a little thirsty. Don't let him get dehydrated. See if you can find him a cup of water at the next house. It was an unusual night, and we had a couple of interesting kids, including a pirate trick-or-treater with a real live parrot on his shoulder, like an actual talking live parrot and everything. It wasn't a dead parrot. Don't go there. I know it was alive because I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Wow, how fun is that? And I guess I was thinking I'd be afraid my parrot would fly away. But I suppose I guess most likely that sometimes the wings are clipped so they won't and can't fly away. I don't know if that was the case here. Maybe just a well-trained parrot. Apparently the parrot's name was Jeffrey. And I know it was a real parrot because when he got his candy and left and turned around to walk back down the stairs, I could see on the back of his shirt that it was a real parrot, if you know what I mean. Okay, so it was an exciting day. Also very weird, a odd moment on social media during which I discovered that at least my circle of people on Blue Sky seemed to be making a fairly big deal of it too. I don't really know. I mean, it's exaggerated because of the bubble and all. But I saw like 3 or 4, maybe more, different reports of people saying that they that year or the previous year had run out of candy and they started giving out potatoes, which I've heard people run out of candy and start giving out weird things before. But potatoes, that's a little bit unusual. Though I'm sure I've seen it before in my life, but what I never really remember is seeing like 5 or 6 people saying either that they had done that this year or that they did it last year or some previous year, and that the kids really thought it was funny and loved it, and that this year they were giving out potatoes as well as candy on purpose. People were mixing it up, saying, I don't want all kids who are, some who are showing up looking for candy and being confronted with potatoes, but most kids apparently really think it's hilarious. And I guess only if it's really super unusual. I guess if you went from house to house to house and like, I'm getting like 6-10 potatoes on every block, you know, I don't know if it would be quite as exciting, but you know, they squeal and run and they run down to the parents, Mom, I got a potato. And anyway, there were like, I guess a half a dozen different accounts on Blue Sky once I started looking for them. But without looking for them, I saw 3 or 4 people talking about giving out potatoes. And then, 1 or 2 posts about kids getting potatoes. And I don't think they were the neighbors of the people who had posted that they were giving out potatoes. So anyway, I thought it was real funny. Our house production staff, one part of the background production staff, is away this week, much to her chagrin, because she really loves answering the door to all the kids on Halloween and wasn't here to do it instead out of town in Las Vegas. It's Jennifer Lopez. She lives here and she was in Las Vegas yesterday, as you know. And, anyway, so I was telling her about the fact that I had been seeing all these people, and that, like, the hot social media story was kids getting potatoes for trick-or-treating and how crazy that was. And, they were out, as people are in Las Vegas. After the trade show is over, they're out having dinner and drinks and whatever else with colleagues. And she says, hey, this is weird. I heard that kids are getting potatoes for Halloween and loving it. It's really a weird thing. And at some point later on in the evening, one of her colleagues says, I just got a text from my granddaughter. She got a potato for trick-or-treating in Salt Lake City. Now, most of these other stories I saw were East Coasters, but, at several locations around the country. So this is weird. I don't know. There's something going on here. We got to get to the bottom of it. It could be Darth is giving out potatoes. It could be that Darth is, starting a new tradition, going to be flying around the country on a sleigh on Halloween Eve, giving out potatoes to kids who put their shoes out on the stoop, something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure what it means for the election, but you should beware somehow, or we could all get together and have, French fries and mashed potatoes in a couple of days. It was just, I don't know, a very weird story that would break out from among the many things we could be talking about. Anyway, yeah, so we'll wrap up the Halloween coverage by saying there's lots of candy left. I was fairly sure that we would be giving out a ton of candy because of the warm weather and kids would be out longer. They were not. But I thank all the Blue Sky and other social media Halloween enthusiasts who reminded us that, look, don't judge the candy seekers. Don't judge the trick-or-treaters. If kids show up and they are, quote-unquote, too old to be trick-or-treating or not wearing a costume or whatever, a reminder that even though kids may be walking around in adolescent bodies, they are still carrying around the minds of children. And whatever it is that drove them out there for trick-or-treating, whether they dressed up or not, they're still, walking around in that body that you think is too old to be trick-or-treating is the mind of a kid who says, I just would like to go into my neighborhood and get some candy. I love free candy. It's great. Candy is delicious. All right, that's a kid, and that kid deserves candy. You bought it to give away anyway, so go ahead and do it. And if you're not in danger of running out, then just go right ahead. And so we did, and we gave it out generously, and I worried very much that we were going to run out because of that. I went out and bought in the morning some additional backup. We didn't even make it through the bag that I had already bought. So there you go. I would say the volume of trick-or-treaters not, in fact, higher than last year, despite the excellent walking around weather anyway. So what else is new? Nothing. There's an election. People are giving out free candy. That's really nice. And let's read some stories. I've been saving a number of them for you in Pocket, some of which are going to be long reads. We might as well get to them. Some of which are going to be, really should just be weekend reading assignments, things you should look at. Backing up to update a story we reported on the other day, the weird spike in the stock price for Trump media, I guess, is over. But New Republic reports, if I can open this one up here, let's get the original so we can at least get the name of our author here. Paige Omek, I'm guessing, O-A-M-E-K. That's an interesting one. Trump media stock crashes in sign of struggling election prospects. Donald Trump's media business isn't doing so well, and neither is his campaign. We know about that part. And, take away from it what you will, but the stock crashed. In fact, Trump Media and Technology Group stock was halted. Trading was halted on it twice on Thursday morning as a pop-up came up and decided not to let you read the story. As its value plummeted, dropped nearly 14% on Thursday. Just the day before, the stock had plummeted more than 20% after a multi-week rise, decreasing Donald Trump's net worth by $1 billion. And, that's always good news. Trump has 114.5 million shares, or roughly 57% of TMTG. Is it Trump Media and Technology Group or something like that? The media group that operates Trump's right-wing social media platform, Truth Social. Prior to Wednesday's plunge, Trump Media was valued higher, I guess as total valuation on the market, higher than Elon Musk's Twitter, X, as investors flocked to the meme stock. In the real world, the company has been bleeding out, struggling to raise revenue and losing money. But experts say the share value is less a reflection of the credibility of the business and more a measure of traders' expectations about the upcoming election. Now, you have betting markets for that, and you should probably stick to that. And it's also not a bad way to try to bribe Trump, because I think Barron is very much into the betting markets and will take your money. Anyway, there are no fundamentals behind this company. It doesn't have a path to profitability. It's just driven by commentary and by hopes and dreams, trader Dennis Dick told Reuters in September. He knew it in September. The stock currently serves primarily as a proxy for the election, but remember that there's also, who is that? This is the research group S3 Partners wrote on Tuesday. I had to attribute that. There's more. It's similar, runs along similar lines, but I remind you that it was also pointed out the other day that this is an excellent, like quasi-legal grift channel as well. He owns 57% of the thing. Whenever he needs to raise capital, raise money, he can sell off the stocks. I guess not if it's halted in trading, I suppose. But if you are looking to bribe him, you just buy a chunk of this stock that inflates his ego, plus it puts your money in escrow. And, well, not really, because it could decline in value. But at any point, he can go and just cash that in. It's like you're just buying bribe coupons. Give me 1,000 shares of Trump Media. I don't think that was enough to bribe him, but whatever your block is. And if you're a sovereign wealth fund, you just buy an even huger block of it, right? And this is money that's now driving up the value of the 115 million shares that Donald Trump owns. And if at some point, if there's any positive value to the company and he sells those shares, he's just taking your money out of the pot and putting it in his pocket and saying, well, it's publicly traded. So there's a little bit of a little bit of noise and a little bit of transaction cost involved in all of it. But it's essentially, especially for a company that has no fundamentals and doesn't really look to be able to make anything and will never return any profits to you. It's not that they're there to chase profits. They're there to transfer cash to Donald Trump. Some people, I think, are thinking they'll profit from it. But rest assured, Donald Trump is involved. He won't allow that to happen. Okay. So without reading through the entirety of that piece, I wanted to update you on that and move on to a couple of the other stories that I have parked here, some of which are there's lots of commentary here that will add into things. But let's see, this looks like a piece of news, but it's in Blue Sky Post form, so I'll have to go and dig it out. Oh, yes, right, Joshua Friedman, who's traded in his Halloween avatar and Halloween screen name back to his old Joshua J. Friedman screen name. Kenneth Cheeseborough, he reports, the architect, as it says here, quote unquote, of the 2020 fake electors plot, who pleaded to criminal charges in Georgia has been suspended from the practice of law in New York, effective immediately per an opinion issued today by a panel of judges. This comes, as he notes, via Anna Bauer at Lawfare, but with a link only to the order and a screen grab from it. So I don't know if I have seen any write-ups of the story just yet, but let's take a look and see if he's in the news and whether anybody has covered that. Nope. They're all stuck on the old headlines for some reason. So maybe over at Lawfare they've covered it. We'll take a look. Just to, I guess, figure out whether or not they've actually... Oh, really? Is that not there? Oh, what are they? Are they a Substack? I don't even really know. Lawfaremedia.org. Okay, that's why I don't think I got it. Is this it? Is there a Cheeseboro story here, or is it just something they were talking about on social media? Guess so. There's Anna Bauer. Can I click on her? Has she posted yet on this? Guess not. But there you have it. Breaking news. Broke yesterday, I guess. But that reminds me of another item about Blue Sky that I meant to mention. And I did mention it yesterday on Blue Sky. Today, somewhere in, probably not in Pocket because I have already done the story, but I noticed that yesterday there was a Washington Post report on the rediscovery of the Access Hollywood tape, specifically on TikTok among mostly new voters, young women, age, 18 to 20 or so, voting mostly in their first presidential election, who are discovering the Access Hollywood tape and, reacting to it for the first time on TikTok, though I suspect I don't know. Some of them might be set up that way, although I suspect some people have heard the tape and then said, well, I should film my reaction to this. This is so crazy. Anyway, no reason to dive too much into that, but it was interesting to see the Washington Post pick up the story and remember that, once again, we had already discussed this story on the air, which, we like to be able to do, but it's not because I'm going out and reporting these things. I'm picking up the stories earlier, and it struck me, all right, I wonder if this means that Blue Sky is achieving critical mass and getting the juice that Twitter once had, that it could reveal to us stories ahead of time before they hit the papers of record, and that the topic of discussion on Blue Sky would become like assignment desk editor for journalists at some point, the way Twitter did, which would be a very big improvement given what's happened at Twitter over the past couple of years since Elon Musk bought it and how much we'd all like to leave it behind. But that there are plenty of people who still say, the news is only really discussed in breaking fashion on Twitter. Blue Sky isn't quite there. So this is the first instance I've seen of it happening in Blue Sky. I don't know that it didn't happen on Twitter or even happened sooner on Twitter, but it never... it hadn't yet very often happened on Blue Sky, so I thought I would take note of that. That's my takeaway from the fact that the Washington Post ran a story on it after we had already discussed it. It's usually the other way around. So, okay, I would mark that down as an important date in the development of Blue Sky. Go ahead and do it. All right, how about commentary? Shall we take advantage of a gift article from The Atlantic? Ann Applebaum has written a piece here that I think probably is apropos for closing argument weekend as we head into the last weekend before we go through the looking glass one way or another here. We're either going to be dealing with emboldened, wacko, Proud Boy, militia, garbage people stuff, or angry, resentful Proud Boy, militia, garbage bag stuff. Or I guess somewhere in the middle where Harris, or I guess where nobody knows exactly what's going on, but because they're agitated, they start making trouble. I don't know. for some reason, I guess, or just confusion among MAGA troops as they have to, as they begin to realize they need to dissolve as a political force. It makes no sense to think about them taking over the country. Anyway, we'll hope for that one, I guess. But anyway, here a gift piece from The Atlantic, rarity for me. Trump wants you to accept all of this as normal. All of this crazy stuff. The fact that you're on edge in the last weekend, not over who will win the election, but over whether or not there's going to be warlords roaming the streets trying to take over. The former president is psychologically preparing Americans for an assault on the electoral system. Let's discuss that, shall we? At least for the next couple of minutes. In the final week of this election season, and in fact the final weekend, I would add, the Republican Party is running two different campaigns. One of them is ugly and angry. Okay. Is an ugly and angry but. Okay, wow. Okay, getting very flowery, Ann. One of them is an ugly and angry but conventional political enterprise. Donald Trump and other Republicans make speeches. Party operatives seek to get out the vote. Money is spent in swing states. Television and radio advertisements proliferate. I guess without looking into the content of them or who's paying for them, but that comes later. The people running that campaign are focused on winning the election. Sort of. Last night, this was, I guess, end of last week. Last night in New York City's Madison Square Garden, or I guess Monday, we caught a glimpse of the other campaign. This is the campaign that is psychologically preparing Americans for an assault on the electoral system, a second January 6th if Trump doesn't win, or else an assault on the political system and the rule of law if he does. Somebody's getting assaulted here, I guess. Listen carefully to the words of Tucker Carlson, the pundit fired from Fox News partly for his role in lying about the 2020 election. Warming up the crowd for Trump, he mocked the very idea that Kamala Harris could win. And the quote is, "It's going to be pretty hard to look at us and say, you know what, Kamala Harris, she got 85 million votes because she's so impressive as the first Samoan, Malaysian, low IQ, former California prosecutor ever to be elected president." I am not really sure where the Samoan, Malaysian thing came from. I don't know whether there's any grain of truth to that, perhaps in her mother's background, but the rest of it, obviously. Here's an explanation. Samoan Malaysian was Carlson's way of mocking Harris's mixed race background. Okay. And low IQ is self-explanatory, but 85 million is a number of votes that she could in fact win. And how, Carlson suggested, could there be such a groundswell of popular support for a person he demeaned as a mongrel? An incompetent, an idiot? Well, the answer is clear. There can't be, and if anyone says it happened, then we will contest it. All of this is part of the game. The Trump campaign's loud confidence, despite dead-even polls, its decision in the final days to take the candidate outside the swing states to New York, New Mexico, and Virginia. Yeah, get out of here. Because we've got this in the bag. And not, say, because filling arenas in Pennsylvania is getting harder. The hyping of Republican early voting numbers, even though no evidence indicates that these are new voters, just people who are no longer being discouraged from voting early. Also, the multiple attempts across the country to remove large numbers of people from the rolls. The many claims with no justification that illegal immigrants are voting, or even, as Trump implied during the September debate, that illegal immigrants are being deliberately imported into the country in order to vote. Vance's declaration that he will accept the election results only as long as only legal American citizens vote. Well, that's what's going to happen. At Madison Square Garden, Trump doubled down on that rhetoric. He repeated past claims about the, quote, invasion of immigrants, about, quote, Venezuelan gangs occupying American cities, even Times Square. I don't think we made specific mention of that one. But yeah, he now runs around saying, you know, the migrant gangs, they take it over Times Square, which is like out here. You can leave this arena and go see for yourself. And then you will see that they have not, And he offered an instant solution. On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history to get these criminals out. I will rescue every city and town that has been invaded and conquered. And we will put these vicious and bloodthirsty criminals in jail. I thought he was going to deport them. But he left open the question of who exactly all these, quote, criminals might be, because he seemed to be talking about not just immigrants, but also his political opponents, the enemy within. The United States, he said, is now an occupied country, but it will soon be an occupied country no longer. Bad phrasing. November 5th, 2024, 9 days from now, it was then, he will be the Liberation Day in America. And it would be nice if that was actually the case for good reasons. The insults we heard from many speakers at Madison Square Garden, including the description of Puerto Rico as garbage, or of Harris as the Antichrist, or of Hillary Clinton as a sick son of a bitch. That was Rosenberg guy, the one who actually was on Imus. Insults that can also be heard in 1,000 podcast episodes featuring Carlson, Elon Musk, J.D. Vance, and their ilk, are part of the same effort. Trump's electorate is being primed to equate his political opposition with infection, pollution, and demonic power. And, demonic power actually happening right now with Tucker Carlson. Maybe we'll get to that, but no explanation for that. And to accept violence and chaos as a legitimate, necessary response to these primal, lethal threats. How about just a little bit more? As I wrote earlier this month, this kind of language imported from the 1930s has never before been a part of mainstream American presidential politics, because no other political candidate in modern history has used an election to undermine the legal basis of the American political system. Do you find that surprising? But if we are an occupied country, then Joe Biden is not the legitimately elected president of the United States. If we are an occupied country, then American government is not a set of institutions established over centuries by Congress, but rather a sinister cabal that must be dismantled at any price. If we are an occupied country, then of course the Trump administration can break the law, commit acts of violence, or even trash the Constitution in order to, quote, liberate Americans, either after Trump has lost the election or after he's won it. You know, either way. Does it really make a difference? We just want to seize power.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Boy, there's a lot to get through here today. Let's jump back into, what were we reading again? Oh, yes, right. Ann Applebaum and the gift article from The Atlantic. She's sort of winding up with the rhetorical flourish here. And let's see, we left off with her running through the rhetoric at Madison Square Garden and how it was laying the groundwork for, well, insurrection and instability and undermining of the of all the institutions that prop up, well, everything that would ordinarily stand up to insist that the winner of the election take over as president of the United States, if it's not Donald Trump. Anyway, this kind of language is not being used accidentally or incidentally. It's not a joke, even when used by professional comedians. These insults are central to Trump's message, which is why they were featured at a venue he reveres. That actually is an important part of why Madison Square Garden. And even if you don't buy into the idea of it evoking the 1939, was it? It was earlier? The 1930s era American Bund rally. Really all you need to know is he's born and raised in New York, and Madison Square Garden is like the pinnacle of venues for him. So anyway, let's see. Moving on here. They are also a classic authoritarian tactics that have worked before, not only in the 1930s, but also in places such as modern Venezuela and modern Russia, countries where the public was also prepared over many years to accept lawlessness and violence from the state. The same tactics are working in the United States right now. So for all you can it happen here people, there's your answer. Election workers whose job is to carry out the will of the voters are already the subject of violent threats and harassment. At least 2 ballot boxes have been attacked. I think the number is a little higher than that, but the natural human instinct is to dismiss, ignore, or downplay these kinds of threats, but that's the point. You are meant to accept this language and behavior, to consider this kind of rhetoric baked in to any Trump campaign. You are supposed to get used to the idea. Just get used to the idea that Trump wishes that he had Hitler's generals, or that he uses the Stalinist phrase, enemies of the people, to describe his opponents. Because once you think that's normal, then you'll accept the next step, even when that next step is an assault on democracy and the rule of law. And unfortunately, it describes the truth of the reality of the situation on the ground, which is that we always just say, yes, it's terrible, but yeah, he did it again. That's Trump. And the newspapers sort of treat it that way. Like the fact that you could be spending multiple days on, did Biden say that? And I think that's being carried forward too. And there is an element of truth somewhere in the middle of it. Apparently, there's some dispute over whether or not the apostrophe S in supporters, remember that was the peg on which he was hanging his hat, saying, I'm not saying his supporters are garbage, though he should have said the supporters are garbage because they're garbage. But their support, the only garbage I see floating around there is his supporters' garbage, that there's, whatever, the things they believe, the things they say about people, the things they do, whatever, that makes them garbage themselves. But whatever, they were trying to say, we were talking about their rhetoric, which, okay. But now there's apparently some controversy in which the White House press office says that or people in contact with the press office are saying that the original transcript that was provided from the press office didn't have the apostrophe S, and then it was added later. And now was that an attempt to whitewash? But none of this is important compared to the fact that, like, for instance, last night, and I don't have reporting readily available, but you can find it on social media. I don't know. I didn't stop on this one, but you can find it kind of everywhere. I guess Trump sat somewhere, man spreading in a chair with Tucker Carlson, and it was an occasion for him to say, essentially, that Liz Cheney should be executed. Once again, trying to pull this line out. This time, trying to give it some descriptive language. Well, how would she like it? I guess now that he's been shot at, he considers himself to be something of a war veteran. Apparently, by the way, he's been being awarded and accepting from people Purple Heart medals for all of this. We've I don't think gotten to that part, and I guess I'll have to write myself a note to see if I can find some documentary evidence of that. But you've probably seen it. But anyway, he's basically saying, well, how would she like it if she were being shot at? And he's sort of reversing the situation. And in fact, what about if she was being shot at, as he says, by 9 barrels, 9 gun barrels are pointing at her, shooting at her. But it seems very clear, why 9, that he's talking about a firing squad and executing her. That's the gist of the comments. And it was odd to see this morning people complaining once again that the New York Times, they didn't exactly sane wash it here. It wasn't really so much sane washing or even whitewashing it. But they did sort of lessen the impact by saying, that he threatens Liz Cheney using violent war imagery. It's not war imagery, it's firing squad. It's not, they sometimes use firing squads in a war, that's true, but it wasn't like, hey, we'll meet in political combat and may the best man win. It was, she should be arrested and shot. So, I don't know, man. That seems a little bit ridiculous all by itself, but I don't know. That made headlines in the last couple of days. What was I searching for? There was something else that I was discussing, and I should be looking through my Blue Sky feed to see what was... there it is. Well, first of all, here's somebody critiquing this. No broken times. Jeff Jarvis, in fact, says here... he called for 9 barrels shooting at her. Stop euphemizing Trump and his hate and fascism. This is not violent war imagery. It's a threat. Quite correct. The other things that were circulating. Oh, yeah, here's the one. There's Trump on Liz Cheney, Aaron Rupar capturing the moment. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her. Let's see how she feels about it, when the guns are trained on her face. I guess if she's got a rifle. I don't know. At any rate, I think that might have been a slip-up. He's normally talking about arresting and executing her. I don't think he's thinking about shooting it out in a war with her. Anyway, there was that. Here's the Washington Post story about younger generation Zoomers hearing the Access Hollywood tape for the first time. Scrolling back through yesterday, just to see what else came up. Oh, right. So I mentioned to you also that there was something weird going on with Tucker Carlson. And Tucker Carlson apparently at some point in the recent past has decided that now is the moment to go public with a claim that he was physically attacked by actual demons. Seems a little strange, don't you think? Apparently, the story is that he was at home in bed sleeping with 4 dogs in the bed and then woke up having been, cut by, there are claw marks on his skin. He's bleeding. And the 4 dogs, they're in the bed, but he's pretty sure it was a demon. So he just wanted everybody to kind of know that and tell them. Here's the New Jersey.com report on it. In crazy tale, I like the headline here, ex-Fox News star claims he was viciously attacked in bed by demons. How do you like that? They're out to get Tucker Carlson. No, not liberals or the mainstream media. Demons, writes Kevin Manahan. Okay. The former Fox News star who was fired to settle a defamation suit against the right-wing network claims that he was attacked in his bed a year and a half ago, but he's only telling you now, by a demon who left him bleeding from claw marks while his dogs and wife, light sleepers, never awoke. Coincidentally, Carlson was booted in April of 2023, about a year and a half ago. So that seems interesting. There may be a little bit of a psychotic break instead. But hey, in a clip posted by the Christianities, ? That's what it says, Christianities YouTube channel on Thursday, Carlson said that he had a, quote, direct experience with evil. Journalists, he was asked sarcastically by the host, John Hears. No, in my bed at night, Carlson said. I got attacked while I was asleep with my wife and 4 dogs and mauled, physically mauled. In a spiritual attack by a demon, Hears asked. Yeah, by a demon, Carlson said, or something unseen that left claw marks on my sides. I don't know. I mean, there's more, but that might be all you need to hear in order to reach a conclusion about Tucker Carlson, who previously was, in my book, most famous for telling people that they needed to tan their groins and that you should buy a special machine to do so because God clearly wanted you to have, a tan package and something. I don't know. I'm not really sure why that was supposed to be important. Okay, let's see. Circling back again on other stories that I wanted to update you on, I have here a story that, let's see, who emailed this one to me? If I can just quickly scroll a little bit. Here we are, from Linda Chapman, who had sent me this information on details on that fire suppression system that I was so impressed by in the Washington state ballot boxes. So let's take a look at this. It doesn't look like a super long article. I thought I might fill in the blanks, and we love these details here on the show. I do anyway, and you just kind of have to sit through them. Washington election offices tweak ballot box pickups to help keep votes secure. Yes, they've changed their plan since the attacks, but then there's some information about what they've been doing already. Taylor Blatchford writes this for the Seattle Times, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to see the whole thing here, I think. King County will soon, and I guess they have been for a couple of days, pick up ballots from boxes more frequently after 3 fires targeted ballot boxes in Washington and Oregon. And I guess Ann Applebaum wrote her piece when the count was just 2. A fire caused by an, quote, incendiary device, and that could be anything, I guess, damaged hundreds of ballots inside a drop box in Vancouver, Washington, early Monday. That same day, a similar fire in Portland damaged 3 ballots. That was the one with the, I guess, more effective fire suppression system. Earlier in October, police found a similar incendiary device at another Vancouver drop box, but no ballots were inside. I don't think we'd heard about that one. Police believe the 3 fires are connected, and the FBI is investigating. King County Elections sends teams of 2 to pick up ballots. I guess you got to go send teams of 2. I don't know whether that was like, well, we need witnesses, etc., or maybe whether they need witnesses to make sure nobody tampers with the ballots, or they need witnesses to make sure that nobody attacks the people gathering the ballots. Probably both. But teams of 2 go to pick up ballots from the boxes every day. Starting on Wednesday, they'll pick up the ballots twice a day, just to make sure that they're not hanging out in there for very long. Just a good security idea. That, according to Chief of Staff Kendall Hodson. The elections office typically adds additional pickups at some point in the election cycle, but opted to start earlier than planned after the ballot box fires. Trained election staff pick up the ballots, and they go through a security checklist to make sure nothing has been tampered with. Other county election offices are also stepping up security measures. Pierce County is emptying every ballot box every 24 hours, an increase from the typical pace at this point in the election cycle, according to spokesperson Derek Nunnally. Some areas are stepping up police patrolling, and the drop boxes have fire suppression equipment. Drop boxes in Snohomish County have custom locks, tamper-evident seals, and fire suppression systems, according to the auditor's office. Ballots are picked up regularly by teams of at least 2 employees. Private security also monitors all drop boxes, including overnight. On Election Day, every King County ballot box will have contracted security, as well as election staff, which is typical for presidential elections, Hodson said. Some particularly busy areas will also have uniformed officers on site to direct traffic. Ballot security starts with King County's ballot boxes, which are over 1,000 pounds. You can't just pick it up and steal it and walk away with it. And constructed with steel, Hodson said. They have multiple locking mechanisms and are bolted into the ground. We had one hit by a school bus once, and the bus was damaged. The drop box was not, Hodson said. They're super tough. The boxes are intentionally designed with thin slots that make it hard to put more than 1 or 2 ballots in. Each box also has 2 fire stops, small canisters with a magnet attached to the inside of the box, designed to extinguish flames if they're automatically triggered. If there are any fires or flames that trigger it, the same thing that comes out of a fire extinguisher will come out, Hodson said. This is increasingly common across Washington, and we've had these in place since before the 2016 election. Before. How do you like that? Local law enforcement partners are keeping an eye on the ballot boxes before the election, Hodson said, and King County Elections is in touch with the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security as they monitor for threats. King County hasn't had any issues with ballot destruction in this election. If voters see a ballot box that appears to be damaged or tampered with, they can alert King County Elections, if you happen to be in King County, I guess. They give you the number. You want to call them? You can. 206-296-8683. If they're worried about their immediate safety, they should call 911 first, of course. We encourage folks to vote early and track your ballots, Hodson said. Go online, sign up for alerts. That will give voters confidence that their ballot has been received and counted. So, how do you like that? That's good information about exactly, well, not exactly, but more information about how it works, how it attaches, how long they've been doing it, and what security measures they're taking heading into the election. There was another one here somewhere that I think Greg forwarded to me the other day, but I'm not positive. Man might have picked it up elsewhere. Oh, yes, right. I think he did actually share this one in his in the notes in Skype, and we didn't get to the story. And this has an interesting twist to it that might tell us a little something about what's happening here. Police, according to the AP, police say the man behind the ballot box fires has metalworking experience and might be planning more attacks. So what's going on here? Alana Durkin, Richer, and Claire Rush are the AP reporters that put this one together. The man suspected of setting fires in ballot drop boxes in Oregon and Washington is an experienced metal worker and may be planning additional attacks, authorities said. Investigators believe the man who set the incendiary devices at ballot boxes in Portland and Vancouver had a wealth of experience in metal fabrication and welding, said Portland Police Bureau spokesperson Mike Benner. The way the devices were constructed and the way they were attached to the metal drop boxes showed that experience. Authorities described the suspect as a white man aged 30 to 40 who is balding or has very short hair. Police previously said surveillance video showed that the man showed him driving a black or dark-colored 2001 to 2004 Volvo S60. The vehicle did not have a front license plate, but it did have a rear plate with unknown letters or numbers, so no help there. The incendiary devices were marked with a message, and here where things become complicated. The message, free Gaza. No. So what's happening here? Well, it could be any number of things. It could be, in fact, somebody saying, no, that's my actual political sentiment. It could be, this is somebody saying, if I write MAGA forever on there, they'll know exactly what's going on. But if I write free Gaza on there, or what can I write on there that will make them think it's Antifa? Well, how about free Gaza? Well, maybe that might be part of their message. Sure, let's try that. Well, okay, that seems interesting. But and law enforcement officials who spoke to the AP about it did so on condition of anonymity. And so we didn't learn too much from that one. A third device placed at a different drop box in Vancouver earlier this month also carried the words Free Palestine in addition to Free Gaza, the official said. Investigators are trying to identify the person responsible and the motive for the suspected arson attacks, which destroyed or damaged hundreds of ballots at the drop box in Vancouver on Monday when the box's fire suppression system didn't work as intended. Authorities are trying to figure out whether the suspect actually had pro-Palestinian views or used the message to try to create confusion, the official said. So they are onto that. Surveillance images captured a Volvo pulling up to the drop box in Portland just before security personnel nearby discovered a fire inside the box on Monday. The early morning fire was extinguished quickly thanks to the box's fire suppression system, I guess, which did work, and a nearby security guard. Police said just 3 of the ballots inside were damaged. The ballot box in Vancouver that burned also had a fire suppression system inside, but it failed to prevent hundreds of ballots from being scorched, said Greg Kimsey, the longtime elected auditor in Clark County, Washington, which includes Vancouver. Election staff were able to identify 488 damaged ballots retrieved from the box, and as of Tuesday evening, 345 of those voters had contacted the county auditor's office to request a replacement ballot. Those people are on it. Wow. The office will mail 143 ballots to the rest of the identified voters on Thursday. 6 of the ballots were unidentifiable. The office said the exact number of ballots destroyed wasn't known, as some may have been completely burned to ash. Oh my. Election staff on Wednesday planned to sort through the damaged ballots for information about who cast them in the hopes that those voters can be given replacement ballots. Kimsey urged voters who dropped their ballot in a transit center box between 11 a.m. Saturday and early Monday to contact his office for a replacement ballot. Authorities in Portland said Monday that enough material from the incendiary devices was recovered to show that the two fires were connected, and that they were connected to an October 8th incendiary device at a different box in Vancouver. No ballots, of course, damaged in that one. And basically, look, all voters in Washington encouraged to check the status of their ballots at votewashington.gov to track their return status. So if the ballot is not marked as received, you can request or print a replacement ballot or visit your local elections department for a replacement. So there you go. Update on the fire suppression system and the various measures that authorities are taking to protect those ballots. I'm glad to hear about that. I had big questions about that, and sounds like they've been on it for a long time. All right, other things that I need to bring you up to date on. There are many, some of which are very long and won't fit in the time we have left before the first break, and others a little shorter. How about this one? Let's see. Just to keep you up to speed on this, Russian courts have decided that they are fining Google, and I guess they know very well that Google has an awful lot of money, and so fining them $1 million, $1 billion, not going to do it. I think the name of the figure that they gave the other day was decillion. They were going to fine them $20 decillion. And I'm not even sure I have that correct. We'll take a look at the story in The Register, theregister.com. I think we've been here before. I recognize that logo, but I think I was confused by the provenance of The Register last time. But anyway, Ian Thompson says Russian court fines Google, and here's all the numbers. How many zeros are we talking about? 20 followed by 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 33 zeros. That's a lot of zeros. Yeah, and there it is written out. $20 decillion in fines for blocking their content, apparently. A Russian court has ruled that Google owes Russian media stations $20 decillion for blocking their content, and the fines could get bigger. I don't know how, but to put that into perspective, the World Bank estimates the global GDP, entire planet, about $100 trillion. Peanuts compared to the prospective fine. Google would therefore have to find more money than exists on Earth to pay Moscow, but on Tuesday fell a little short of that mark when it posted $88 billion in quarterly revenue. So, wow. The bizarre amount has been calculated after a 4-year court case that started after YouTube banned the ultranationalist Russian channel Tsargrad in 2020 in response to the U.S. sanctions imposed against its owner. Following Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine in 2022, more channels were added to the banned list, and 17 stations are now suing the Chocolate Factory. Suing the Chocolate Factory. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean, including Zvezda, a TV channel owned by Putin's Ministry of Defense, according to local media. So I don't know what the reference to the Chocolate Factory is supposed to be, but who knows, man? I've never seen the figure 20 decillion anything. Just thought I'd keep you up to date in case, you come into money and you want to help Google out in paying their fines because they need your money. There's going to be a GoFundMe. It's going to be whatever. Just the commission alone will be great for GoFundMe. Okay, let's see. A couple of other things I should add. Well, let's see if we can squeeze this one in, as it is the last weekend here. Washington Post reporting the other day that Gops leaders in some states are moving to block Justice Department election monitors in their states. Federal authorities have deployed monitors for decades, but Republican leaders in some states have begun denying them entry into polling sites. And this isn't the first time they've done it either. David Nakamura reports this for the Washington Post. The Justice Department's ability to monitor local jurisdictions for voting rights irregularities on Election Day could be important, right? already curtailed by the Supreme Court, again, is facing a new hurdle: opposition from Republicans who are seeking to block federal authorities from polling sites. That reminds me, I need to find another article I saw circulating yesterday about the Virginia decision, just to reinforce what we learned about it the other day. I'll see if I can get it during the break. But, okay, the U.S. government has regularly dispatched hundreds of monitors to voting locations in blue, red, and swing states, aiming to protect ballot access, discourage improper partisan influence, and act as a moderating force on political campaigns. While the Justice Department has the legal right to request access to polling sites, inflamed partisanship and ideological extremism have contributed to greater resistance to such activities in some GOP-controlled states, legal experts said. Those states have attempted to politicize the process and cast federal monitors as partisans from the Biden administration who cannot be trusted. There's only one party denying federal observers access to the polls. Republican leaders in Missouri and Florida, which flatly banned federal monitors in the 2022 midterm elections, said in recent interviews that their positions had not changed and that justice officials would likely be rebuffed again if they request access to voting locations for Tuesday's presidential election. Missouri Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft. Remember when Ashcroft was one of the old line conservative families that would definitely object to this sort of destruction of the constitutional principle? Oh, well. Anyway, Missouri Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft accused the Justice Department of using monitors to punish conservative states that have tightened voter registration or voter identification laws and adopted policies the Biden administration opposes. Drawing from a state law that does not specifically list federal monitors as permitted to enter polling sites, he accused the Justice Department of overstepping its authority. I mean, they're requesting. There's no overstepping going on. This certainly has become politicized, said Ashcroft, whose father, John Ashcroft, led the Justice Department as Attorney General during the administration of President George W. Bush. Those evil bastards at the DOJ, like my dad. The Department of Justice lied when they came in and used pretenses to try to bully their way in when they knew what they were doing was illegal. That's his view of the thing. All right, damn it, we're late again with the music. Sorry. All right, creates a little bit of trouble during the editing process, but we'll work around it. In 2022, federal authorities sought access to polling sites in Cole County, Missouri, home of the state capital of Jefferson City, citing complaints that the county lacked adequate voting machines for disabled people. A legitimate complaint, but no, this is all part of an illegal plot, says Ashcroft. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. So let's see, where were we? We're in the middle of the Washington Post piece about banning federal monitors from monitoring polling stations, at least in Missouri and Florida. Jay Ashcroft has come to the conclusion that it is a huge plot against conservatives to come and see whether or not they've improved things in Jefferson City with respect to adequate voting machine access for the disabled. Ashcroft, who rejected those complaints as untrue, said federal monitors who showed up on Election Day were forced to remain outside in public spaces. In Florida, Secretary of State Cord Byrd, also a Republican, of course, said justice officials in 2022 failed to provide a valid reason for trying to enter polling sites in Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach counties, prompting him and Governor Ron DeSantis to rebuff their requests. A spokesman for Byrd's office said this month that the state does not explicitly permit federal monitors to enter voting locations. You could just allow it and make sure that they don't do anything wrong, but no. They're just going to say, show me in the Constitution. Anyway, department officials declined to comment on specific disputes. The agency typically discloses the full list of jurisdictions that will be subject to federal monitors a day or two before the election. The department has long monitored elections in jurisdictions around the country to protect the rights of voters. Spokeswoman Ariel Bradford said in a statement, "We will continue to use every tool at our disposal to enforce the federal voting rights laws, if there are any, and ensure that all eligible voters are able to vote and have their vote counted, including by deploying monitors wherever we deem appropriate." Damn you. Former Justice Department officials said Republicans are attempting to cast doubt on what has for decades been considered a nonpartisan approach for safeguarding poll access. After all, they're only in Missouri anyway. They said they were coming to see whether there was adequate access for the disabled. I mean, why do you object to this? Because you think it's a secret plot to manipulate the machines for Biden. Sure. Monitors aim to be as unobtrusive as possible, the former official said, raising any concerns about potential election law violations with local officials and reporting broader observations about election operations to U.S. attorneys' offices and the Justice Department Civil Rights Division. Bradley Hurd, a voting rights lawyer at the Justice Department from 2012 to 2022, said attempts to discredit or ban federal monitors are part of a troubling trend. And okay. Oh, by the way, I've got a note here from Scott Anderson who says that the chocolate factory is the Russian nickname for Google. Okay. I mean, I guess I figured that kind of had to be it because it's the only construction that made sense, but I've not heard that one. Okay. Thanks for the clarification, Scott. And let's see. I don't know. Do we go any further with this one? I guess just be aware of the fact that it's now a trend in Republican-controlled states to say, well, it doesn't say specifically in the Constitution anywhere that you feds are allowed to come in and monitor the things, but we've got nothing to hide, but we're going to hide it anyway, because reasons, because principles, because we're all about standing up for first principles in our constitutional system, except when we're not. I find that to be a little annoying, to say the least. Okay, let's see. Other stories. I was going to look and see whether I could find, I think, was it Norm Ornstein who just recently, and I saw someone else discussing it. Eric Blair, in fact, is the guy whose comment I had seen. Yes, he says, as Norm Ornstein says here, this is a reply Eric was talking about, the Virginia case. And all right, so just to let you know what's going on here, all of our favorite commentators are speaking here. Brendan Nyhan is discussing Mark Joseph Stern's article that we read the other day just about how outrageous the decision was, the shadow docket decision on the Virginia case, and pulling out one of the quotes as his favorite. And then Eric Blair, seeing Brendan comment, says, I've been saying for 4 years now that if we don't win the Senate and expand the Supreme Court by 2028, the court will rig elections to lock in permanent Republican rule. This looks small, but it is a titanic change. Now red states can rig by purging whenever they want, whoever they want, whenever they want, including right before the elections. And goes on to say that Norm Ornstein has chimed in on it, saying that SCOTUS completely blew away the express language of the law. This is the way the Federalist Society supermajority is now acting to lock in authoritarian rule by rigging future elections using methods like this. In fact, screen grab here demonstrating that Norm has been discussing this, saying the Supreme Court's opinion in the Virginia voter purge case is more deeply unsettling than it appears on the surface. It is only about 1,600 voters, a significant portion probably perfectly legal. But right-wing justices completely blew away the express language of the law. Congress has superseding authority on federal elections. Actions like Youngkin took are expressly forbidden within the 90-day window before the election. 6 justices decided that their partisan views are more significant than that law. This is not the first time. Alito has led the way here. He has made it clear with a majority of allies that they will rewrite the law and impose their own views. It is an astonishing and deeply disturbing distortion of what the framers intended and how the court operated before Roberts took over. There's your legacy, pal. This is a court engaged in a hostile takeover of the Constitution and democracy. Well, that's putting a finer point on it. Let's mark that one for inclusion in the roundup. Okay, where can I do that? All right. I may have to come back to this one. Just leave this one open and circle back around. Another quick item that made the rounds yesterday I thought was of some interest, and I should include it. You really have to take a look at it yourself. But there was a LeBron James tweet yesterday basically making the point, letting us all know who he'd be voting for and why, and that he circulated a video along with it. I am unclear on the provenance of the video itself, but it's pretty good and pretty powerful, and it comes across as a real gut punch. And I don't know, it's been weird trying to see it because the whole thing doesn't play, but anyway, I will include also in the roundup a link to the Blue Sky post that mostly includes the video. And it's basically, all sorts of Trump quotes and Trump supporter quotes paired with video that makes the point that, if you are a minority of any kind in this country, Donald Trump is out to get you and out to demonize you, and that his racism has strong and direct links to the historical racism we all have seen in either directly or in the history books if we're much younger, things that we thought were gone forever, that we only see in black and white pictures and black and white footage that we think of as being ancient times because of that, but in fact is well within living memory for a lot of people, mirrored in the same actions and rhetoric that we see today. It was very powerful, and it's not clear where it came from, but it was a powerful statement coming from somebody as influential as LeBron James. Thought I should mention that as we head into the weekend. All right, couple of other stories. Let me quickly mention this before diving into more long reads. Another woman has come forward to say, guess what? Donald Trump sexually assaulted me, too. This is not the one we learned about just a couple of days ago, who was a Sports Illustrated model, who also likewise, I can't remember. I don't even know what, in some cases, the backstory is as to why they come forward at the moment that they do. Some people are, convinced by or reassured by hearing the backstory. That one I don't remember, but there's probably a mention of it in here and might jog the memory. But this is a second recent allegation, and what do you know? It is once again a participant in one of his beauty pageants, and this one, the most janky of them. Like, we all know that he bought the Miss Teen USA pageant somewhere along the line, but there was also a point in time during which he was basically he was basically setting up precursors to dating apps that we have now. If he wanted hot models to date, he would start a pageant, and then, it was an invitational pageant, and he would, send out letters to whoever he thought was hot and invite them to be a part of this new fake pageant. I believe this one was the Donald J. Trump American Dream pageant. It's not connected to anything, but it looked like a pageant. It had his name on it. They would fly you, all expenses paid in, to go and participate in it. And then Trump would try and hook up with you, try and isolate and molest you somewhere along the line. Now, we know that Trump is not fond of using his money if he doesn't have to. So how was he flying all these women in and holding them captive briefly in the Trump casinos in Atlantic City? The answer is he was still friends with Jeffrey Epstein at the time, and Jeffrey Epstein was financing it and providing the planes. Super creepy. The Daily Beast has the story, and there's a fuller accounting of it in, unfortunately, the Daily Mail, but they're good at this salacious stuff. Here's the Daily Beast story on it. Let me see if I can click through to the original and see if the writer is, in fact, yes, Claire Lampin, 6'1" beauty queen, accuses Trump of, quote, grabbing her body everywhere. Beatrice, I don't know how to pronounce her last name. It's Keul. And I believe that there's a mention in one of the stories, this one or the Daily Mail, about Trump mispronouncing the name as cool, and that stood out. So I guess it's not cool, but Kuhl? I don't know. German? You tell me. Anyway, she is now the 28th person, Claire notes, to accuse the former president of sexual misconduct. I can't believe it. It's so hard to understand. Anyway, it looks like I can read the Daily Beast story about it directly, so let's do that. Yet another woman has come forward to accuse Donald Trump of groping her, bringing the total number of sexual misconduct allegations against the Gops candidate up to 28. They're all lying, everybody's lying except the biggest liar in the world. Amazing. Anyway, speaking to the Daily Mail, Swiss former beauty pageant contestant Beatrice Kuhl, maybe, I don't know, said that Trump, quote, jumped on her when she met him in 1993. Kuhl was runner-up in Miss Switzerland and participated in Miss Europe in 1992, she told the Mail, which evidently put her on Trump's radar. The businessman offered her an all-expenses-paid trip to New York and New Jersey for his Donald J. Trump American Dream pageant in November of the following year, she recalled. During an event at the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan, Kuhl told the Mail Trump approached her. So, by the way, you see how quickly that one slipped by? An all-expenses-paid trip to New York and New Jersey. The pageant's happening in Atlantic City, which is, I guess you might be able to get away with the idea that it's a glamorous location. Atlantic City, New Jersey, because Miss America contest is there. And he's riding on that. But if not, well, it'll be New York. Now, you'll only be in New York for 10 seconds for me to get you to one of my hotels and molest you. But, if you don't recognize Atlantic City, you'll recognize all expense paid trip to New York. Whee! Well, anyway, so he gets her to the Plaza Hotel, and then Trump approaches her. We talked for so long that everybody was staring at us, she said. A good 10 minutes, if not 15. I couldn't believe he was so fond of me. By the way, a link here in this story to the previous one that I was talking about that also involved Jeffrey Epstein. Just so we can get the name here. Too late. But is it Stephanie something? I'm sorry, I missed the name. But Stacey Williams is the name. I've missed it, but okay. We didn't get to talk about that one, but that one the Daily Beast won't let me see right away. Anyway, back to Beatrice here. Later, when one of Trump's employees came up to her and said Trump wanted a, quote, private meeting, as the Mail puts it, Kuhl agreed and accompanied him to one of the big suites upstairs. She said she thought he just wanted to talk. But as soon as she entered the room, she continued, he jumped on me. I just had time to turn. I was not prepared. I tried to do what I could to get rid of him. He kissed me on the lips and on the neck. He tried to lift my dress, she added. He was grabbing and touching my body everywhere he could. Kuhl believes her height, she is 6'1", was the only thing that allowed her to escape Trump's grasp. She said she de-escalated the situation, and women will recognize this, by asking if they could, quote, talk first, at which point Trump allegedly reverted to his best behavior. They proceeded to chat for the next half hour, she said, during which Trump offered to help bring her to the U.S. as a student. I'll help you commit immigration fraud. That's nice. He asked me to agree to see him again. I said yes, because I didn't want trouble. Women know all about this. He asked me if I'm mad. I said no. I had to find something diplomatic, she said. It was the beginning of the pageant, and I had an entire week to stay there. What's more, Kuhl added, I was in a foreign country. I was scared that I could not go home or that I couldn't come back. I was scared of everything. And when you're scared, you say whatever it takes to save yourself. Kuhl shared documentation of the trip, photos, plane tickets, invitation, commemorative plaque with the Mail, saying she only decided to come forward after finding it all while preparing for a move. she was moving houses. She found the box where she threw everything. Oh gosh, here's all the documentary evidence. Now I can come forward. But while dozens of women have come forward with similar claims in the lead up to the previous election cycles, Kuehl is only the second to do so this time around. Earlier this month, ex-model Stacey Williams also accused Trump of groping her in 1993 in what she believed was a twisted game with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Trump denied those allegations as unequivocally false, just as he denied every other round of misconduct allegations he's faced, up to and including those of writer E. Jean Carroll, whose sexual assault complaints against Trump a New York court has twice found credible. The Daily Beast has contacted the Trump campaign for comment on Kuehl's allegations, but guess what? I'm sure they'll deny them. The Daily Mail account of it is also interesting and informative if you really want to dive into it looking for further corroborating detail. I know, I'm sending you to the Daily Mail for like corroboration. Well, that's not wise. Anyway, but you know, if you want to read it for entertainment purposes, there's always that. So, yeah, by the way, speaking of the idea of everybody in the world is lying but me, Donald Trump, Daniel Dale has weighed in again today. I guess this one we'll leave for like weekend reading if you want. He's got a piece at CNN. Analysis shows what? Analysis, Donald Trump's campaign of relentless lying. That's lying in a headline, and that's pretty good. But note that they have to, that's why we stuck analysis in there. It's not just regular reporters just saying that he's a liar. This is an opinion or analyst piece. And it's pretty much what you would expect to be hearing from Daniel Dale here. The United States that Donald Trump describes in his rally speeches would be a pretty bad place if it actually existed. Schools secretly sending children for gender-affirming surgeries without parental consent. Towns and even cities conquered by illegal immigrants. Pervasive election fraud, the highest inflation of all time. Presiding over it all, an illegitimate president who stole the job from the rightful winner. None of this is true. All links, of course. Trump keeps telling his crowds that it is. For the third consecutive presidential election, the Republican presidential nominee is running a relentlessly dishonest campaign for the world's most powerful office, wildly exaggerating statistics, grossly distorting his opponent's record and his own, regularly just plain making stuff up. Trump is lying to American voters with a frequency and variety whose only precedent is his own previous campaigns. Trump made thousands of false claims as president, picking up the pace during crises and elections, but that he has himself done the same thing before doesn't make it any less noteworthy that he's doing it now. All presidents lie. Historians say, however, that there has never been a president who has lied this much, has lied about so many different things, or made up so many things out of whole cloth. Donald Trump is the first president to consistently seek to create a separate reality, said CNN presidential historian Timothy Naftali, a Columbia University research scholar and former director of the Richard Nixon Presidential Library. Not just misleadingly shading the facts or omitting damaging information, but endlessly inventing stories out of thin air. He's found, Naftali said, that the big lie is more powerful than the little lie, and if you're going to get away with a lie, you might as well go with a big lie. And from there, it's kind of exactly what you would be expecting from Daniel Dale. The headers kind of give away the direction of the story. The section headers, lies about subjects big and small. Nobody else is like this. The coverage hasn't changed much. And Trump's dismissive response to fact checks. Just all sort of hanging out there, and something that you should probably, I'll include it again in the roundup. I feel like it's almost a waste of time to run through it all on the show. You're aware of most of it. I guess I'll also note then for the record that a couple of prominent commentators on Blue Sky have weighed in on this as well. Circulating yesterday, Donald Trump's big grievance post at Truth Social with lots of capital letters. Something he does every day, and that's the point of the commentators here. His his post was, "We caught them cheating big in Pennsylvania. Must announce and prosecute now. This is a criminal violation of the law. Stop voter fraud. Check out Kamala's new sleazebag lawyer. We are on them all. Well, we are on them all this time. Who would have ever thought that our country is so corrupt?" I mean, anybody listening to you would have thought that, I guess. But Chris Hayes kind of nailed it the other day, just saying it's crazy that this is just background noise now. That's just considered, he did it again, right? Just like the writers were saying, it's kind of baked in at this point. Southpaw, NYC Southpaw, also weighing on this, saying, "It's hard for me to cope with the fact that you can absolutely act like this in public, have proved beyond a doubt that it is not a bit but an indication of both deliberate malice and serious instability, and still make a serious bid to control the world's largest arsenal of nuclear weapons." Yeah, that is a little scary, isn't it? Somebody put it slightly differently, I recall reposting it on Blue Sky like around the same time, but somebody again saying like it is. Was it Grudgy, I think, who had said it, where it was just an offhand comment that he made I don't know, in the last 1 or 2 days, where I feel like it was him. I'm going to scroll around and saying, actually, one other offhand comment, speaking of the other stories of people who are coming forward saying, yeah, he sexually assaulted me too. Grudgy saying, if you told me during the Gary Hart stuff, let's say, that everybody recognizes that, I should realize that there's again, a large portion of the audience. Gary Hart, who? Look it up. But the rest of you older folks know. If you had told me during Gary Hart's situation that someday a presidential candidate would be found guilty of rape and the media wouldn't even bother to discuss it, wouldn't bother to report. They did report on it, but I mean, it should be daily discussion. I think my brain would explode. That is a good point. But I think right around the same time, somebody had said, how did they put it? I'm scrolling to see if I can find it and attribute it. But it was basically, another one of these, I can't believe we're in this situation where it's a coin toss between these guys. But I think it was expressed, again, just a little bit differently, where it was like, what a situation to find ourselves in here in this country, that it's either, like, it's a coin toss as between, now I remember, it was as between multiracial democracy or, a white nationalist fascist regime. I don't remember exactly how they put it, but think about that. Those are the two things we're talking about. Modern multiracial democracy or white supremacist authoritarianism. We don't know which one we're going to get next week. That is bizarre. It's not a close election between closely divided ideologies. It's a closely divided election between polar opposites. And that's really actually quite astonishing. So let me see if I can make a note on how to find that post and then share that with you. And on my way there, I passed a number of other things that I thought, this too ought to be. In fact, let's see, somebody's meme up there from a TikTok video grabbed saying, watching Donald Trump and Elon Musk, two men who together have 17 children with 6 different women, preach about traditional families. Now imagine that was a woman. Yeah, well, that's true. Well said. We certainly heard that last time around with Donald Trump, just him alone, 5 children, 3 women, but add Elon Musk to the picture and it's just that much crazier. All right. And goodness, that's unsettling. All right. Third break coming up here. Let's see if we can't squeeze in one more story here. Then there's like 10 long reads, which is really troubling, and I don't know how we're going to deal with that. But, golly. All right. We'll see what we can do. This one is a long read that I won't be able to get to even if I dedicate the entirety of the next segment to it. But here's something you should be aware of and maybe want to take a look at on your own over the weekend. ProPublica, once again, with a big score. And I don't know, highlighting another ridiculous situation in which Republicans are setting themselves up to be able to complain about something later, just like we noted the other day that in Pennsylvania they are doing everything that they can to slow down the early voting process and then also suing, saying that the early voting process is too slow. Also, setting up lawsuits that will create delays in the count with the idea that later they will sue about the count taking too long and that being evidence of fraud, right? That was their MO last time around, and they're going to do it again. This time, a longer game in this sense, but a very similar play in which during the 1990s, the gun industry launched a secret project in which they gathered and then shared with Republican Party officials all of the personal information that they had on gun owners and people who had purchased weapons from them. A federal registry of gun owners. Wow, that's weird, huh? Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. So I was just about to describe to you as quickly as I could the great reporting once again from ProPublica. What's our headline on this one here? Now, this is one of those interactive pieces. I'm going to have to scroll around here, called Without Knowledge or Consent. Ooh, a single byline on this one. Corey G. Johnson. Congratulations to you for putting together this massive story. I mean, it's clearly well-researched and a far-reaching story. Not that I expect it to have reverberations in the campaign immediately, but it really kind of should. And like I said, kind of a piece with the small bore Pennsylvania early voting stories. I'll have to go and find those and bring those to your attention. But I did manage to come up with a couple of the other things that I hinted at, and I got some links for you. Oh, and by the way, I guess before I turn back to this, it was, is it Seth Maskett who put this one out here? Everything is, screwed up with all the Halloween stuff still. But yeah, he had put this one out. It was his formulation of it that I mentioned the other day. It's wild that multiracial democracy and authoritarian Nazi regime are within the margin of error of each other. That's just, that's kind of difficult to swallow. But there we are. And we might not even really be sure why that's the case, but there you have it. Okay, so back to ProPublica. As I said, it's one of these interactive pieces that I'll read you the description of what's going on as I scroll through the screen. It reads, in the late 1990s, the gun industry launched a secret project to elect firearm-friendly politicians. Manufacturers gave political operatives sensitive, intimate, information on their customers without their consent. And the piece is then illustrated with photos of both Donald Trump and George W. Bush. The story behind the data sharing and its impact has never been revealed until now. And here it is, Without Knowledge or Consent by Corey G. Johnson. And I'll see how much of it will give you a taste of what's going on. This was published on October 24th. For years, America's most iconic gun makers turned over sensitive personal information on hundreds of thousands of customers to political operatives. Those operatives, in turn, secretly employed the details to rally firearm owners to elect pro-gun politicians running for Congress and the White House, a ProPublica investigation has found. The clandestine sharing of gun buyers' identities without their knowledge and consent marked a significant departure for an industry that has long prided itself on thwarting efforts to track who owns firearms in America. At least 10 gun industry businesses, including Glock, Smith & Wesson, Remington, Marlin, and Mossberg, handed over names, addresses, and other private data to the gun industry's chief lobbying group, not the NRA, but the National Shooting Sports Foundation. The NSSF then entered the gun owners' details into what would become a massive database, and I'm sure that they would seek to differentiate. The Republican lawyers would say, but we didn't want the federal government to be in possession of this database and be the ones tracking it. No, but we did want all of the people who are Republican partisans who are members of that government to have access to that information. Oh, that's totally different. But remember also, it is also significant that this happened in the 1990s because this is when the gun industry and their supporters are in full-on black helicopters, Jade Helm mode. They weren't in Jade Helm mode just yet, but black helicopters are going to be landing on my private ranch in Idaho to kidnap me, and Waco and Ruby Ridge. And I mean, they were absolutely in a 100% in freak out about the prospect of national databases of all gun owners, and they were in fact creating a national database of all the gun owners. And then, of course, because every Republican accusation is a confession, they have to be paired, right? So not only were they doing that, then they said, you know what we can do? We can campaign on the claim that it's the Democrats who are doing this. They're the ones trying to compile a massive database. We're the ones actually doing it. But they're the ones who are going to be, bad for doing it, even though they're not doing it. Whereas we, who are doing it, are good for doing it. It's really kind of amazing. The data initially came from decades of warranty cards filled out by customers and returned to gun manufacturers for rebates and repair or replacement programs. Simple as that. The ProPublica review of dozens of warranty cards from the 1970s through today found that some promised customers their information would be kept strictly confidential. It wasn't. Others said some information could be shared with third parties for marketing and sales. We're going to send you a coupon for half off of a gun. None of the cards informed buyers their details would be used by lobbyists and consultants to win elections, and that some of those lobbyists and consultants would then have won those elections themselves and be members of the federal government, whatever. The gun industry launched the project approximately 17 months before the 2000 election as it grappled with a cascade of financial, legal, and political threats. Within 3 years, the NSSF's database, filled with warranty card information and supplemented with names from voter rolls and hunting licenses, contained at least 5.5 million people. John Leibowitz, who was appointed to the Federal Trade Commission by President George W. Bush in 2004 and served as chair under President Barack Obama, in fact, reviewed several company privacy policies and warranty cards at ProPublica's request. The commission has enforced privacy protection since the 1970s. Leibowitz said, Firearms companies that handed over customer information may have breached federal and state prohibitions against unfair and deceptive business behavior and could face civil sanctions. But of course, what will they claim? If they do face civil sanctions, they will say, we're gun manufacturers. This is a violation of the Second Amendment. We're allowed to violate federal law in the name of distributing guns in this country because Congress shall make no law. There you go. No, it's not even that. But the right to bear and keep and bear arms has to include being able to sell them. Now, that's not keeping them, and that's not bearing them. That's pretty interesting, right? But you're interfering with other people's right to keep and bear them by making it more difficult for us to market it to them and not send them coupons so that they can buy them for less. There you go. That's all it takes to create a Second Amendment violation in their view. But remember, these are people who also say if the EPA forces indoor shooting ranges to do lead abatement to reduce the levels of particulate lead in the air, which is a huge, huge problem at shooting ranges, that too is a violation of the Second Amendment. If the EPA asks that hunters use steel shot instead of lead shot when they're out hunting in order, again, to reduce lead levels in the environment, that too, a Second Amendment violation in their view. You get the idea. It's a very long article. I highly recommend that you take a look at it over the weekend. As much as I'd like to sit here and read it to you, there are just too many things that I'd also like to put on your reading list. They're on my reading list. They have to be on your reading list as well. All right. Jeffrey Epstein also back in the news here. I haven't been able to hear this thing because of the way it is dealing with the Daily Beast. But, let me see. What happens if I'm opening the original here? Harry Lambert has the byline on this one. Yeah, no, I'm firewalled again, but I'll read you the story. But this one has audio, so you might be interested. If you have a subscription, you'll probably enjoy hearing the audio. The headline here is, listen to Jeffrey Epstein spill intel on Donald Trump's White House, which, remember that all during his White House tenure, Trump is disavowing any connection to Jeffrey Epstein. I haven't heard from him in years. I always thought he was a great guy, but no. We broke it off and haven't had any contact for years and years and years. But maybe that was even true. But Epstein is claiming, and he could have been a huge liar. He was a huge pervert. He could have also been a huge liar. But he insisted, I guess, all the way up until his incarceration and mysterious death, that he knew Donald Trump well enough in order to be able to offer this analysis. Michael Wolff, the explosive chronicler of Donald Trump's 4 years in the White House, is he explosive? Has released what he says is a recording of Jeffrey Epstein, who died in 2019, discussing Trump's then White House team in detail. Wolff released the tape on his podcast, Fire and Fury. He said it was made in a restaurant in 2017, most probably in the Soho branch of, I don't even know, La Durée, maybe, Lauduree, a patisserie in Manhattan. I don't go there. Epstein can be heard speaking over the din of diners. So this is like going to a diner and asking people about Donald Trump, I guess. His people fight each other, Epstein tells Wolff on the recording, and then he, Trump, poisons the well outside. He will tell 10 people, Bannon's a scumbag, and Priebus is not doing a good job, and Kellyanne has a big mouth. What do you think? Jamie Dimon, CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, says that you're a problem and I shouldn't keep you. And I spoke to Carl Icahn, the financier, Carl Icahn, and Carl thinks I need a new spokesperson. He does this to his staff all the time. It's interesting. I mean, that does seem like a very Donald Trump tactic. And it explains why there's always bad-mouthed stories coming out all over the place by all these people, and yet he keeps them. He may or may not believe those stories, but he's the one circulating them, so that's how it happens. So I think he's probably right about that. Epstein continues here. So Kellyanne, even though I hired Kellyanne's husband, Kellyanne is just too much of a wild card. And then he tells Bannon, I really want to keep you, but Kellyanne hates you. Epstein, sorry, this is a link to a different thing here, by the way. I guess Wolf thinking this was going to be, the October surprise, perhaps. Epstein showed pics of Trump with topless young women. All right, we'll see if we can't click through and see. Well, what's the headline? Epstein showed me photos of Trump with topless young women sitting on his lap, is the headline of this other Daily Beast piece. This is the claim of, I guess, Michael Wolff, working off of this previous story. All right. So let's see. Epstein, in the first story we were reading, is referring to former White House Chief Strategist Steve Bannon, former White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, and former White House Senior Counselor Kellyanne Conway, whose then husband George Conway was briefly considered for positions in Trump's Department of Justice. That would have been an interesting turn of events. The recording seems to show that Epstein and Trump were close enough for the disgraced sex offender. We mean Epstein, the dead disgraced. Well, he's undead. We could call Trump here, but traditionally understood, dead, disgraced sex offender. That way you can tell between them. That he was close enough to the still living disgraced sex offender to know how Trump ruled his White House by dividing and conquering his staff. Wolf, whose journalistic accuracy has previously been challenged by critics, said he had around 100 hours of Epstein talking about the inner workings of the Trump White House and about his long-standing deep relationship with Donald Trump. That sounds like it's probably an exaggeration. 100 hours? All about the White House? Like, does Epstein really know? I don't know. Wolf has not provided anything more than this snippet of Epstein speaking in 2017. Epstein had wanted Wolf to write his biography. He also wanted the New York Times reporter James B. Stewart, the author of Disney War, to do so. Okay. Caroline Leavitt, the National Press Secretary for Trump's 2024 election campaign, responded to Wolf's claims and the recording in a statement to the Daily Beast. Blah, blah, blah. Michael Wolff is a liar. Epstein has not previously been identified by Wolf as a source for his Fire and Fury, the 2018 book on the Trump presidency, which is estimated to have made him more than $13 million. Wolf followed the book with two more: Siege, Trump Under Fire in 2019, and Landslide, the final days of the Trump presidency in 2021, which proved less successful. The Daily Mail recently signed him up, there they are again, to cover Trump as a columnist. He then launched his podcast in June. Trump and Epstein were filmed laughing together in a clip captured at Mar-a-Lago in 1992 by NBC. We've all seen that one. They were also photographed smiling beside each other at Trump's Palm Beach estate in 1997 and 2000. Here are these two guys, both driven by a need to do anything they wanted with women, dominance and submission and entertainment, Wolf says of the duo on his podcast, and one of them ends up in the darkest prison in the country and the other in the White House. And I think they probably both deserve that prison instead. A Trump campaign source claimed to the Beast that it is widely known that Trump severed ties with Epstein after allegations of sex trafficking were levied against his once close friend. But in fact, I don't think it was that. I think it was earlier than that. The story I always heard was that he was hitting on the Towel Girls and maybe even some of the Pervalago members' daughters, and that's what prompted the break. Anyway, just wanted you to know that that was happening and that the audio is out there to listen to if you are a subscriber to the Daily Beast. I don't know if it's going to be super revealing, but it does seem to be a pretty accurate, I think, or credible or believable account of how Trump operates. Whether or not it's evidence that they were actually still in contact at that time, that remains to be seen. But it doesn't appear that it doesn't appear to offer any evidence of that, just good psychological insight into the way Trump works. That appears to be correct. All right, ProPublica also has another huge score, as they frequently do. In this piece, another one of these highly interactive pieces that I'm going to have to scroll around in, and the headline, Exploiting Meta's Weaknesses, deceptive political ads thrived on Facebook and Instagram in the run-up to the election. And I think they've had some reaction to the story and updated it. But they basically found that Meta was just taking everybody's money and running the things that absolutely, positively violated all of its terms of service. And then when they were called out, they started to try to sort some of it out. Craig Silverman from ProPublica and Priyajana Bengani from the TOW, T-O-W, Center for Digital Journalism, teaming up on this piece. I'll give you a hint at how it's going. And, this one has some bullet points, if we like that. The reporting highlights. We might have to resort to this given how short 2 hours really is. Deceptive political ads. They happen. 8 deceptive advertising networks have placed over 160,000 election and social issues ads across more than 340 Facebook pages in English and Spanish. Bullet point here says harmed users. Some of the people who clicked on the ads were unwittingly signed up for monthly credit card charges or lost health coverage, among other consequences. How did that happen? And then lastly, spotty enforcement. Meta removed some ads after first approving them, but it failed to catch others with similar or identical content or to stop networks from launching new pages and ads. All right, how about some details? In December, the verified Facebook page of Adam Klotz, K-L-O-T-Z, a Fox News meteorologist, started running strange video ads. Some featured the distinctive voice of former President Donald Trump, promising $6,400 with your name on it. No payback required, just for clicking the ad and filling out a form. And you kind of have to be pretty dumb to fall for that one, but he wouldn't promise it if he wasn't a rich, successful billionaire. Anyway, in other ads with the same offer, President Joe Biden's well-known cadence assured viewers that this isn't a loan with strings attached. I have no Joe Biden voice for you, so I just had to do it straight. There was no free cash. Guys, there never is. But okay. The audio was generated by AI. Oh no, I can't believe it. People who clicked were taken to a form asking for their personal information, which was sold to telemarketers who could target them for legitimate offers or scams. Klotz's page ran more than 300 of these ads before ProPublica contacted the weather forecaster in late August. Through a spokesperson, Klotz said that his page had been hacked and he was locked out. I had no idea that ads were being run until you reached out. And entirely plausible. Klotz's page has been co-opted by a sprawling ad account network that has operated on Facebook for years, churning out roughly 100,000 misleading election and social issue ads despite Meta's stated commitment to crack down on harmful content, according to an investigation and analysis by ProPublica and Columbia Journalism's School's TOW, you tell me, Center for Digital Journalism, as well as research by the Tech Transparency Project, a nonpartisan nonprofit that researches large tech platforms. The organizations combined data and shared their analyses. TTP's report was produced independently of ProPublica, and TOW's, I'm going to go with TOW on this, investigation was shared with ProPublica prior to publication. The network, which uses the name Patriot Democracy, because why not, on many of its ad accounts, is one of 8 deceptive Meta advertising operations identified by ProPublica and TOW. These networks have collectively controlled more than 340 Facebook pages, as well as associated Instagram and Messenger accounts. Most were created by the advertising networks, with some pages masquerading as government entities. All under the nose of Meta. I can't believe it. The AI can create the voices of the presidents and defraud people, but no AI tools for monitoring whether any of this crap is going on, apparently. It's amazing. They have not cracked that one. AI for everything else, though. The networks have placed more than 160,000 election and social issue ads on these pages in English and Spanish. Meta showed the ads to users nearly 900 million times across Facebook and Instagram. And I know they're showing lots of things, and the numbers in total, I'm sure, dwarf even 900 million. But I mean, at some level, are you really, you got no tools to detect something that has happened 900 million times on your network? The ads are only a fraction of the more than $115 billion that Meta earns annually in advertising revenue. But at just over $25 million in total lifetime spend, the networks collectively rank as the 11th largest all-time advertiser on Meta for U.S. elections or social issues ads since the company began sharing data in 2018. The company's failure to block these scams consistently highlights how one of the world's largest platforms struggles, maybe, to protect its users from fraud and deliver on its nearly decade-long promise to prevent deceptive political ads. Most of these networks are run by lead generation companies, which gather and sell people's personal information. People who clicked on some of these ads were unwittingly signed up for monthly credit card charges, which is astonishing, really, among many other schemes. Some, for example, were conned by an unscrupulous insurance agent into changing their Affordable Care Act health plans. While the agent earns a commission, the people who are scammed can lose their health care insurance or face unexpected tax bills because of the switch. The ads run by the networks employ tactics that Meta has banned, including the undisclosed use of deepfake audio and video of national political figures, and promoting misleading claims about government programs to bait people into sharing personal information. Thousands of ads illegally displayed copies of state and county seals and the images of governors to trick users. The state has recently approved that Illinois residents under the age of 89, may now qualify for up to $35,000 of funeral expense insurance to cover any and all end-of-life expenses, read one deceptive ad featuring the photo of Governor J.B. Pritzker and the Illinois state seal. More than 13,000 ads deployed divisive political rhetoric or false claims to promote unofficial Trump merchandise. Meta removed some of the ads after initially approving them, by the way, the investigation found, but it failed to catch thousands of others with similar or even identical content. In many cases, how hard is it to find it if it's identical? Come on. In many cases, even after removing the violating ads, it allowed the associated Facebook pages and accounts to continue operating, enabling the parent networks to spawn new pages and ads. Meta requires ads related to elections or social issues like healthcare and immigration to include a paid-for-by disclaimer that identifies the person or entity behind the ads. But its rules for verifying advertisers and publicly disclosing who paid for such ads are less stringent than those of its main competitor, Google. ProPublica and Tao found many of the disclaimers on Facebook ads listed non-existent entities. A Meta spokesperson said it invests heavily in trust and safety and uses a mix of humans and technology to review election and social issues ads. But, not yet. We'll do it after the election when we have more time, I guess. We welcome ProPublica's investigation into this scam activity, which included deceptive ads promoting Affordable Care Act tax credits and government-funded rent subsidies. Spokesperson Margarita Franklin said in an emailed statement, as part of our ongoing work against scams, impersonation, and spam, our enforcement systems had already detected and disabled a large portion of the pages, and we reviewed and took action against the remainder of these pages for various policy violations, once they were caught by somebody else, I guess. Our analysis showed that while Meta had removed some pages and ads, its enforcement often lagged or was haphazard. Prior to being contacted by ProPublica and Tao, Meta had taken action against roughly 140 pages affiliated with these 8 networks, representing less than half of the total identified in the investigation. By then, the ads on those pages had been shown hundreds of millions of times, resulting in financial losses for an untold number of people. Meta ultimately removed a substantial portion of the pages flagged by this investigation. But after that enforcement, ProPublica and the Tao Center found that 4 of the networks ran more than 5,000 ads in October. Patriot Democracy alone activated 2 pages a day on average in the first half of this month. Their enforcement here is just super spotty and inconsistent, and they are not actually attacking root problems, said Jeff Allen, the chief research officer of the Integrity Institute. And how you can argue with the Integrity Institute, right? A nonprofit organization for trust and safety professionals. He said networks like Patriot Democracy exploit the fact that a single Facebook page can be connected to multiple ad accounts and user profiles, creating a complex challenge for enforcement. But these cracks have existed for the past 8 years, said Allen, a former Meta data scientist himself who worked on integrity issues before departing in 2019. There are a lot of gaps in the system, and Facebook's overall strategy is to play whack-a-mole. Franklin noted that scammers use a variety of tactics to conceal their activity. Meta consistently updates its detection and enforcement systems and works with industry and law enforcement partners to combat fraudulent activity, she said. This is a highly adversarial space, and we continue to update our enforcement systems to respond to evolving scammer behavior. She added that Meta has taken legal action against several operators. So, there you go. There was legal action. Okay, so there's lots to read in this one, and it goes on at some length, and like most ProPublica reporting, it is long on detail and a long read, but maybe you'd like to sit down at some point over the weekend and go over our reading assignments. Speaking of taking legal action, we can, I think, squeeze in a word or two about what Trump has been up to lately. Just on our way out the door here, if we can get that music running, we're a little bit behind. But Trump has filed yet another lawsuit, although there was some doubt in my mind at first about whether he did or not, paperwork and Trump. But apparently suing CBS for $10 billion over his claim that they showed a deceptively edited interview with Kamala Harris and something, and that therefore defrauded all the voters in America, plus him, plus everybody else, but in particular the voters of Texas. Why? Because he was, of course, filing in Matthew Kacsmarik's courtroom in the Amarillo division of the division of the Northern District of Texas in federal courts, so that he would get him. And I don't know whether or not this is something that Kacsmarik is actually going to carry forward for him, and I guess I'll wait and see how the election comes out. But at the very least, you file it there so that you don't get hit with sanctions. Right? Kacsmarik's not going to hit him with sanctions for filing frivolous claims, as frivolous as they actually are. But yeah, he's sticking to his guns, saying that the thing was deceptively edited, and therefore CBS owes him personally $10 billion because of how badly he fooled the voters of Texas somehow. The voters of Texas get nothing, by the way. Anyway, I just found it interesting. That, too, is out there, something to talk about over the weekend. Plus more, of course, and Justice Putnam will bring you that.
NetworksRadio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
What's he got here? Elon Musk figures that since he could ignore our immigration laws and become the richest man in the world, he can ignore our election laws and continue to buy votes while laughing in the DOJ's face. Oh, and hey, also out in Oregon, ballot sorting machine woes slow the count in an Oregon county with a pivotal U.S. House race. They'll be complaining about that next week. Stay tuned. We'll see you Monday.